Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kim here, and if you can tell in the voice, I've got a little bit of a cold, but it is me. It is me. I'm actually getting over this cold, thank goodness. It's been a horrible few days. My husband caught it about 3 days before I did, so luckily I was able to help him through his worst days, and then as he got better, he helped me through the next couple of days. So it's been pretty different in our house over the last few days, because two sickies in the same house, just not good. Just not good. But at least he's definitely on the mend, and I'm not far behind him, although it doesn't sound like it. But this will last for a couple of days. I may have to stop and start this video to have a coughing spell, but for the most part I think I can get through it. So today's video is a collaboration with PandaHall, and PandaHall.com is on the internet. They have all different types of craft supplies, beading, scrapbooking, jewelry making, all that stuff. You've seen my videos before this. And so today I'm doing a make with some of the stuff that I got from them. This is technically a paid presentation because, you know, they supply me with a selection of items that I get to choose. And then I do some videos showing how I work with them. But you know what? It may be a paid presentation, but I have no problem shopping with them on my own. So speaking of shopping, if you like any of the products, all the links are going to be linked down below in the description. Just click on the more under this video and you'll see a whole drop-down list of the items I'm using, you know, direct links to PandaHall, as well as links to a coupon code that gives you a 10% discount. So all that information is down below. And today I am demonstrating, I bought their assorted felt wool felting packs. Now this is the full one. They come 2 bags like this. So this is the one I've already opened. But they come 2 bags like this, and there are 25 different colors. I'm just going to pop them out really quick for you to see. And so I wanted to see if I could use felting wool to complement my snippets and my slow stitching, which I love this stuff. I love it. I love it. So this just gives you an idea. I'm just going to take them out quickly and then I will put them all back. There's 25 different colors. And don't let these little baggies fool you, because when we open them up, they just go poof. And when you see how little we use, you know that this is a very economical method of buying it and having all the different colors. You know, once you get going, there are certain colors you may not need, and then you can buy them colors individually or in smaller lots of assorted colors. But yeah, there's 25 different ones in here, and you get 2 bags of these. And not only do you get the 25 bags and the 2 bags, you get these zipper bags as well, which I love, that I'm looking forward to being able to use for storing all kinds of things. So that's the wool felting. And then I did buy needles from them. However, I didn't realize that the handles are not interchangeable, and I'll show you that in a second. So I will on my next order, I will buy the handles to go with these. But they come 100 in a pack. It's very economical. And same with the wooden handles. There's a good assortment of them, or like a good lot of them. And between the 2 prices, they don't even come to the cost of what this thing cost me. I bought this at Michael's, and it came with 2 needles in the holders and the foam. So I'm going to get this out of the way because I don't have a handle. I'm going to use these ones for today. So the foam, I have been using it on a few little projects so far. And the foam is this kind of a soft, it's not styrofoam, it's like a, I don't know, it feels kind of smooth, silky. But from using it after a while, your needle, it makes it very, very soggy. Like it's really, really soft in the center. So the lifespan of this, and I think they tell you that in the instructions with Michael's, the lifespan is limited. So I thought, well, now I got to find these sponges. But I went into my packing material, because anytime I get packing material from boxes and stuff, always keep it in case I have to pack something. And I found the very same foam. It's the same stuff. It's just a little bit thinner, but I think this is actually, it almost seems a little bit denser. So, you know, you can improvise and find other foams. You can also use like a corrugated cardboard box that's thick enough, you know, maybe glue a few pieces together. You could use felt if you have a thick felt glued together. If you go online to the different YouTube videos that show how to work with these and the supplies they use, you'll find an assortment of methods of supplies. But because I had these bigger pieces, this was actually a bigger piece. I cut it in half, and I just pinched them together with some brads, and so now it's technically double the width, and I'm going to try using this today because this is very soggy, although I will still use the edges, and I may use this, I may cut a piece underneath and put two together and then use this just as a base and then work on the top of it. So that's an option as well. But there's always alternative methods, whether you go on YouTube and see other channels and see what they're doing, or you experiment. And with 100 needles, I don't think I have to worry about experimenting at all. And, you know, I'm sure these will last me more than my lifetime. I'll have to leave these in a will to somebody, I think. So I'm going to use this as my pokey tool, or part for my pokey tool. Now the needles, if you've never needle felted before, are extremely sharp, and they have little barbs on them, so I wouldn't want to get my finger stuck in here. So you may want to wear some protective little, you know, those little rubber things. I won't, of course, but that's up to you. But you know, if you stab yourself, it's your own fault, not mine. So it's up to you if you want to wear them or not. But this is the tool. And when the very first time I ever did needle felting myself, I just used one of these needles without a protector. And by the end of my little project from poking it, my hands were sore, and I realized now that, yeah, you needed a handle of sorts. So I do recommend getting the handles. Now these ones do come off of here with a pair of pliers, so you could replace the needles. I never noticed if Michael's had replacement needles, but I did notice that these are smaller than this one. So I don't know if it will interchange. I will try it eventually. Well, they're not that much smaller. Let's give it a try. We're right here on camera, so. But you definitely want to use a tool to pull this out. It's not hard to pull out. You can see it's coming off quite easy. So it looks like it's, well, it's a little bit, the top is a little bit shorter, so this may not fit in there, but we'll try it and see. So you kind of want to aim for that little point there, my guess is. So I'm going to try pushing this in and seeing, but it may not work. No, it's not going to fit. So I definitely have to get the holders, which I would get anyway, because then I'll have several holders, and then they'll match up and fit with these needles quite nicely. And they're wooden too, so I can paint them up and do some fun things to them. But this will go back in here again. Now I don't want to slip my fingers down these barbs because it hurts a little bit when you do touch them. But they do fit right back into the handle. It's not much. I mean, you could probably make a little packing tape handle, or use washi tape wrapped around a few times to make a handle as well if you don't have a handle. But, you know, I mean, it always looks nice to have the handles. So this is the tool. And then you saw the felt, and I've already got some out of the bags here that I'm going to show you. So when you take it out of the bag, like it's like 3 times the size. And when you see how little we need for this project, it just amazes me. So I have this snippet roll here that I've been working on. It's about 2 meters long. I will probably work on it in stages, and then only work with what I need, and then move on to something else, still using the same fabric. Because I think to do the whole length 2 meters, the same design, I would be bored to tears. And that's just me, honestly. Some people like that, and they will do that for 2 whole meters, but I won't. So all I've done is I sewed some scrappy bits in different materials, in shades of purples, and this kind of eggplant and plum, and, you know, kind of a mauvey color, a little bit of lilac, just whatever I had. And so that was my first stage. And then I started going into my scraps. Now, I haven't been working with my little zippered organizer because I wanted to show you this project. And this is for something specific. And it's not that I'm traveling with it, because the whole idea with the little pockets is something I want to just travel with, or just bring with me just one thing to work on. So for this, I'm using products that I have, and I gathered up everything ahead of time. But the next stage that I did on this was I had some tulle that came off of, this was a capped sleeve on a little dress, like a little sari dress. And so what I did, because I just put all these purple scraps in here, is what I did is I cut the trim off first. And this trim, I'm just going to go around here really quickly. Here we go to the end. And this trim goes back into my scrap box, because that's how I come up with pieces like this. So this will get taken apart, and I will use it in my next project. But by the time I finish working with this, I'll be done with purple for a while. I think so. And so then the same thing on this end, I took this trim off. Now, for this video, I'm just cutting it. Normally, I would use my thread, oh gosh, seam ripper, sorry. I was coming up with the word. Brain fog, sorry. You have to deal with that when you have a cold. But normally I would use my seam ripper, and I will still take the netting off the back of this eventually. And this goes into my scrap box too, this silver part. So that will stay with my scraps. I may even use it on this snippet roll. I'm not 100% sure yet. So I just kind of cut pieces of this. This is how I like to work and do snippet rolls. So I just kind of, when I was working on the other end, which you'll see, I just took this tulle and I just laid it down on top. I didn't care if, I hope you can see okay. I didn't care that it goes over the edge. I may cut it off, I may fold it in, I may, you know, discard it altogether. I'm not sure at this point. But this was my second step, was to lay this down over this piece that I'd already done, that's already sewn, the snippet roll. And then I had these silk flowers that I had dyed this summer. And I laid them down on top. I have to give you the whole how I did this so you know why as we go along. So I laid one down on top, and I just took a pin and pinned it down until I was ready to start stitching. And I don't measure. I just said, okay, it's closer to that edge, so this one I'm going to put closer to this side. I'm just kind of staggering them and leaving a couple of inches in between. So this is how I would do this type of snippet roll. And just put a pin down to hold it in place. And I would only do about maybe 4 of these at a time, because again, the more you do in one length, the more it becomes a daunting task to get it done. So if you do 2 or 4 or even 1, although 1 is kind of boring for me, but about 4, then it seems like you can get through that 4, and you could stop there and you have enough to do a project, because 4 will take me maybe about 12 inches. I'm trying to work around the idea that I'm using 2 flowers in a 6-inch space, so that if I want to cut it for putting on a journal cover, you know, the width of the journal cover may be 5.5 to 6 inches wide, right? So that is kind of what I'm working with the idea that if I have to trim it down a little bit, I can always use the little bits for clusters and snippets and tabs and stuff. So that is my thinking when I'm building this part of it. So I would stitch these down, and when I stitched them down, I used a French knot stitch. And now this is not about how to do my snippet rolls. It's just a quick recap. So I'm not going to sit here and make French knots to sew these down. I will show you what I did thereafter. So I stitch them down, holding them in place, because I want to get rid of these pins as quickly as I can, because it's very easy to poke yourself every time you turn around. So that's what I would do to get started, and then do the French knots, and then I do the decorating part after. So I'm going to show you that now, because there's no point in me working on this part for a while. Put these pins away. So when you get to this end, this is where you see them. And they are stitched down, and you can see the French knots. I think you can see those little bobbly things there. Some of them are good, some of them don't turn out so good, but you know, it's a reminder that you must keep your thread reasonably short. Because the ones that don't turn out are because you have too much thread going on and stuff. So here you can see the tulle now compared to over here where there is no tulle. So that's the tulle base. And then once I had it all stitched down with the French knots, and it was really just to hold it in place, because there's going to be more stuff added onto this. That's when I did my kind of a fake stamen look. You know, I just stitched some black threads and we went from small to larger, back to small on each petal, to give it a fake stamen. So this to me is flat. It's just way too flat. Some people like that type of stitching. I don't. I like dimension. I like to feel things. I like to see, you know, hills and valleys, and, you know, just a mixture of tactile interest. You know, I don't know how else to explain it, but I don't like it flat. The odd time for the odd thing maybe, but for the most part, I do like dimension, and I like to see different types of dimension. So this is where I wanted to know if the felt was going to work for me. And yeah, I've already done some, and you'll get to see some. But I'm going to start with working on this one in particular. So I knew I wanted to have a yellow flower center in here. And I could have done it with beads or sequins, but, you know, I really wanted to play with felt. And so I just took, now you can see how much is here. That's too much. I just took about half of this felt, and I just pulled it apart. And I just rolled it around my finger, sort of, and just bunched it up in the middle. And then looked to see how it was going to fit here. That's not bad. I will tighten it up as we go along, and I'm going to show you that. So it's this simple. And like I said, if you go and look at other tutorials, you will see how they do it. I'm by far no expert, but this works for me, and I like it. And I like how it's turning out. So the idea is you put your foam underneath, and this is the first time I'm testing this foam, so hopefully this works. And you kind of just hold it in place, and this is where those fingers might want to be covered. But I've learned rather quickly that if I have my fingers sort of up, where it's more the nail, you have a better chance of survival. But it's up to you. You know, if you want to wear protectors, I strongly recommend protectors. Even a thimble, but I don't think I can wear thimbles on well, I could wear a thimble on this finger, but it's just too bulky for me. I like to feel things as well. So the whole idea is the little barbs, and I'm telling you this as if you don't know, but some of you already know, and I get it. And some of you have a better method than I do. I get that too. But this works for me, and I'm showing some newbies. So right now, I'm ahead of the newbies. So all I'm doing is I'm taking this barbed needle and I'm pushing it through the wool, and the wool is getting caught on these little barbs, and then it stays on the other side of the fabric. I don't know how. It's genius, but it does. And so all I've done is kind of gathered it up here, and I start to take the needle, and the idea is to go straight up and down with pretty rapid punches into your wool. And I'm doing more of the center right now. And I know you probably can't see the actual needle action. I'm trying to do it on a bit of a curve. You really should work straight. And then I just take my needle and I just kind of pull it in and do that part so that now it's more controlled as to where I want the yellow to be. Does that make sense? I hope so. So I'm just going to, again, move this in a little bit with my needle. You may have to zoom it in. I really can't from here, but... And then I'm going to pull that part in a little bit. And continue to push this in. Now, if this is too boring, you can always fast forward to the next step. Now, you saw how little I used. And I'm just pushing it in, pulling with my needle to get it sort of in line. It's a little bit wonky, but that's okay. I like wonky. And then once you've got it in place, you can really take your needle and rapidly poke it down. And that just secures it in more inside here. And then when you flip it over, now you may not be able to see. Don't look at my ugly stitches. Where am I? Here I am. You can see that the hairs are staying back here. So that's what's holding it onto the other side. Now I'm pretty sure if I took a needle, if I didn't like something, I could just pull this off. I might have to take a few moments to get it out of there, but I could pull it off. But so far, I'm liking this, but it's still a little flat. I want it to be a little bit more rounded. So I'm going to take a tiny little bit more of this. Not much, because you saw how much I used on the last one. So I'm just going to roll that into a little ball, or fold it up into a little ball. And lay that on top, and still staying contained in that circle that I've got here. I'm just going to add this little extra on so that I get a more rounded felt center. Can you imagine how pretty these would be with sunflowers? Oh, I'm going to so do some of those to stitch some sunflowers onto a project. Now you can buy sunflowers at the dollar store, the silk sunflowers. Take them apart so you get rid of that big chunky center. And then, they come in layers. Usually the sunflower petals come in 2 or 3 layers. So you can get quite a few sunflower heads out of one sunflower, I'm pretty sure. And then do the same thing that I'm doing and use them to stitch. You can also cut fabric out of using your die cutting tools. But I'm using silk flowers that were at a garage sale that were really, really cheap, and I washed them, and then I dyed them and took them all apart, and there's my flowers. But you could definitely use your die cutting tools to cut some fabric flowers, or make your own fabric flower petals and put them together to use on something like this. So now I've got this center. And then I wanted to show you that how I added leaves in between. So I had the greens. I have this light green and a dark green. I wanted to show a little bit of dimension or like color variations, sorry. Excuse me. And I just take a little, like this is way, way, way too much. And here's my yellow. It's caught on here. This stuff is amazing. It's like coloring with tiny, tiny little bits of stuff. So this is how much I'm using. Can you see that? And because it's very wispy at the end here, I kind of used that. I wanted to keep the wisp, and it's kind of folded in half. And I just fold it in half, or well, maybe about 2/3. So I still have this little wispy end, and then I have this thicker bottom. Can you see that okay? So that is what I use to make a leaf. So I just put the leaf down wherever I sort of thought I wanted it to be, and I will hold this up later so you can see, but I have those little wisps over here. And they're a little bit long, so I think I might fold them back a tiny little bit to just kind of gather it more towards that, but just giving it a little bit of a point. And then once I kind of have it in a position that I like, I just started to poke it into place. I'm not worried that there's some purple showing through, because I'm going to fill that in with the light green. And then just kind of scraping that all together, because there is the netting in the way there. I'm just using the pokey tool, or the felting needle, I guess is the correct term for it, and pressing it into place. And I know you can't really see it too much right now. There you are. And then I took a little bit of the green, just a tiny, tiny bit of green. And again, just kind of wrapping it around my finger. You can play with it different ways and see what you like. And wherever that little empty spot is, that's kind of what I'm aiming for, is to lay it down in there, knowing that it's, it's going to have little wisps that will blend in with the green, just like you would see on a real leaf. And just like if you were painting, you would want a little bit of the wisp of a second color to blend in with the first color that you're doing. And a little bit of overlap. A little bit where you have more green of the light green showing. And all I'm doing is poking it in here. I have a little fly that keeps flying around me. He's been with me for a few days in this studio. And just taking my pokey tool, I'm just poking all of that in. And this will also poke down some of your fabric and your netting, and I know you probably cannot see that much of that green, but it is there. But there is a leaf, and so I just went on and made leaves in between these pieces. I'll take a little bit less there. So there you can see a little bit more. I guess I've had twisted it a little bit more when I was doing these. So there's the end, the wispy end. And I'm still going to take this rounded part and fold that over one more time. And then just, I want to have leaves all over in here, because these leaves are really not about these flowers. But you could make big leaves if you wanted, but I want to add some other stuff in here. So I'm going to have the leaf start here, because I'm going to have another one on this side. Now, when I was talking about this yellow, and I said that, if I really didn't like it, I probably could pick it all off. I will be adding some beads and other stitches into these felted items to further secure it. But when I see how fun and easy it is to add just intense color and, you know, a different level of thickness and dimension, this is just amazing to me. And it's so fast. Now, I know you can't see my stitches, but I am just stitching it in or pushing it in with the needle. And it's that easy to get this in here. It makes a little crunchy sound. And then going back to the green, I'm just going to pull some of this off of here. Don't think I need even that much. Now, you could certainly use thicker amounts and, you know, make different things with it, of course, but this is what I want it for, is for doing with my snippet rolls. The nice thing about it is, you know, it's no thread required at this point, and you can stitch and see the results pretty quickly. And I use my needle just to kind of gather it together if it's a little bit too spread out. I just bring it a little bit closer. And if it was too much of this green, although I like it, if it was too much of the wrong color, you could just use a little bit of the dark green over top again to tone down the light green, and so on and so on. And I'm just going to add one more green leaf, and then we'll go on to something else. So, whoop. You know, I never tried it. Let's try it. I'm going to try adding the two colors at the same time. See what happens. So you see how much I have there, right? And I'm just going to add this one now. This one's getting a little bit bigger, but that's okay. There are no rules. And I will just kind of tuck it in as we go along. And you can shape it as you go along too and point it in different directions. So now, after doing these little projects that I've been working on, it really makes me want to experiment more with this and use it in other slow stitch projects, which you will see coming up. I will use more of this. I can also see these needles being very good to use with just plain wool. So you will see more of that in some of my future videos. Now, this leaf got really, really big, but that's okay. And I will continue to add these leaves as I go along on my own time. But with you here, I don't want to do that. Now, I think this was the purple I was using. Just want to double check. Oh, well, if it's not, that's okay too. Like I said, I usually only work in a couple squares or a couple of sections at a time. So I don't mind if it changes. Because I know I'm not going to use this whole thing on any project in particular. So I now wanted to introduce some little tiny flowers. And so all I'm doing is, again, rolling this up into like a little ball, because they're going to be like a little rosette sort of thing. That's too big. And so this is now going to go right there. And I'm just going to use the needle to poke it all in. bringing it together a little bit. Yeah, and just using my needle to just kind of pull it together. It's really hard to know, you know, I will check the video after, of course, but it's really hard to know if you can see what I'm doing. And if I feel I need a little bit more, but I don't think I do, I could always add more on top of it. You saw how I did the yellow one there. So now with what I had left over, I think that's more than enough. Probably, again, too much. But the more you needle it into your project, the more it's going to flatten and get smaller, you know, as you gather it up with your needle. Excuse me. Oh, much better than what it has been, that's for sure. And so I'm going to have this one over here. Now, I know these are much bigger than the first ones I made, and that's okay. It's probably easier for you to see it anyway. And then I will do them differently when I'm at this section. And so there I have the two flowers with leaves that I've added into my project. Now they're going to get decorated even further. While I was doing this, there were some threads that had pulled out that were in my way. And I don't know if I can replicate it again. Here's a thread here. And let's see if I can pull another one here. Yeah, here's a pink thread. And so I had these threads and I thought, I wonder if this would work. And so I just gathered it up into this scrappy little bits. And anytime you've ever sewn anything and left raw edges and then you had to pull the strings because you wanted them to have that distressed edge, all these little strings are now good for something. And I had just made it into this little ball like that. And so just for fun, I had done two of them. One is here. This one was just with little pink silk threads. And then this was just a little scrappy bit of the purple threads. I mean, they're not perfected by any means, but I just thought they were fun. So I'm going to try putting this one right here and see what happens. So when I get down to this end, I will have a whole new project that I'll be working on. And I did take a little bit of the, I had a little bit of brown. I'll use a little bit of this yellow felt. We'll make a different one. But I love this. This is so much fun. I know I've got lots of different ideas to share with you. I just got to test them out, of course. But I just put a little bit in the center here. That'll help to grab some of these fibers and make sure that these two flowers had very wispy threads, whereas this is a little bit coarser of a thread. But the felt in the center helps to hold all this together. And, you know, I may use a little bit of white glue or some stitching when I'm doing this more seriously. And even still, the beading will help to hold it in place. I'm just gathering some of these threads here so that they're not sticking out too much. And you just continue to poke with your needle, and eventually these threads get poked through the fabric and then don't come back so easily. I mean, they could come back, but by the time you put stitches in here, if you're slow stitching on top of here, it will hold it in place. So now I'm just pushing those threads in a little bit. So it won't catch every thread, but it will catch the odd one. And you know, because they're all intertwined, that will basically be what holds it together until I start doing some stitching over top. Looks like a little fried egg, doesn't it? But it's a flower. And so now I can add things like leaves and stuff in here to, again, create more dimension and more interest. So now comes the next part, which is what I'm going to just show you. I will do a little bit on one of these that I've already done, on this flower that I've already done. But here is where, so you've seen me put the green leaves and the pink flowers in. And like I said, these are bigger than the ones I started out doing. But this is what it looks like right now. And this is not done by any means. By the time I'm finished, you are not going to be able to see very much, if any, of the background strip fabric that I'm using, because I want to fill this in with lots of, I'm going to use some bigger threads and some different beads and sequins and stuff to fill the whole thing in. So here is the center of the yellow flower here. So now I can show you to compare. You can see that the leaves got a little bit bigger over here compared to these ones that I first started doing. But that's okay, because like I said, for the most part, if I use a piece that big, that's going to be it. Because that in itself is already 6 inches, I think. Yeah, right up to here will be 6 inches. So I will continue to add this design around here in this smaller sizes to fill that in, and then I will expand on it further from here till I get to this one. And you know, it doesn't matter to me if they're different, because that's kind of where I'm going to be cutting them off anyway, whether I'm using it for a pocket or whether I'm using it for a journal cover where I'm putting on pieces and then, you know, stitching around it and doing things in between it. At the most I'm going to use is 6 inches. But it's fun to have this on a roll and to unroll it and work on it whenever I want. So what I did here is I added in a little green leaf sequins. And then on the flower petals, I've started to put these larger sequins and the beads in the center. These larger sequins I got from Brenda. Thank you, Brenda. I love these. I love the color. It's perfect for this. And then these little round decorations could be anything. You know, you could put a button in the center. You could put a gem in the center, glue down whatever you liked. But this came from some Dollarama ribbon, but I'm pretty sure PandaHall has this as well. And all I did was I just cut out one section, and I didn't care what color it was. You can see that there are different colors that I'm putting on here, because by the time I'm finished this thing, it will look completely different. And so that is what I'm gluing in the center. So it will, or not gluing, stitching. There are tiny, tiny little holes in here to stitch this onto the center of the flower. So that's what's going to go there when I'm done. So then the next thing was to add, I just added a little string of plain beads into the center of these flowers. And I'm very limited to those two. So I will be probably out of them by the time I finish this section, and then, you know, have to go on to a different color or a slight different color for the next section. But that's the whole point, is to use these up and have them done and gone. So to sew the sequins on, I'm not going to bother to show you that, but I will show you these little green ones. Now, I did get these from PandaHall. This is the big bag. I have taken out, where are they? They're on the table here. Yeah, I've taken some out to work with, you know, in my tray that I'm working out of. There are like over 3,000 in this bag. I think it comes 50 grams. There is lots. So I would highly recommend getting some of these from Panda if you're going to, because the price was very inexpensive and I can cover so many projects, whether I'm doing a 1/2 inch wide ribbon or large projects like this. It's just a lovely little accent to add into the project. And so I'm adding them in between to give a little bit of color. I just started, which is why I don't have very many in here yet. But I'm adding them in between to give a little color. And it's like a little extra leaf on these leaves that I'm working with. So they will start getting added in between. So there'll be a little bit more shiny and sparkly things in between here. But that will be something I bring you along when I'm working on this, when I'm doing my slow stitching days, like where it's not a PandaHall video. So this will continue for months, and you will see, I probably will show you a couple of times when I'm working on this, different things that I'm doing, because it will change from one section to the next. But eventually it'll be just something I recap to show you where I'm at, because I don't normally like to work on just one project at a time. Like I said, if I only need this much, I will work on probably about what I have here will be plenty, and it'll take me a couple months to do. But when I'm ready, I know that I have this much to work on my project, and so I can just cut it off. When I stitch my beads on and my sequins, and when I'm doing any of this stuff, I always knot in each section so that I know that I can cut this wherever I want. So if I only need this much, not the second flower, then I can cut right in between all these beads and know that nothing's going to come off, nothing's going to come undone, because I don't jump from this one to the next one. I stop with this one and I knot it, and then sometimes I will jump the thread, but then I re-knot it on the next one before I even start, so that if I cut between those two leaves and around that flower, it'll give me a nice shabby edge, and none of my beads on either side will fall off. So that's just my method of doing it. Even this flower here to that leaf has been knotted separately. And the reason I know that is I put the leaves on separate so that I am not running with the same thread or jumping with the same thread. So I did all the flower heads first to add these little beads into the center. And then the leaves are on separate again. So I can cut it at any length. And I'm not going to cut through a flower for something. I'll cut around it either way, but I'm not going to cut through it. I mean, if I cut through it, then yes, I'm going to lose some beads. But if I cut through it and I lose beads and I don't want this, well, then it shouldn't be that hard to pull this little section apart manually, so that I don't have anything there, and I can either add something else after or not have anything at all there. Does that make sense? Hope so. So this is my project so far. It is going to evolve as we go along, but this was just to show you how I did these leaves, how I started on here, and now I'm loving these larger ones. So who knows, they could get bigger and bigger yet. We'll see how that goes. So thank you, PandaHall, for this opportunity to play with this stuff. Like I said, I am excited to be using this felt. I think it's a great idea to have the 25 colors and to be able to get 2 bags. So not only do you get 2 bags, but you can share it with a friend. And even then, you see how much I use. You could probably split this into 2 and share that with another friend. So you could have 4 friends sharing this one little project, and certainly 1 little package of needles and 1 package of holders if you wanted. And absolutely, these will go a long, long way to share with a couple of friends. So even if you put an order together on PandaHall and you split it between 2 or 4 friends, you can easily share all of these things together and still come out far ahead and have everything you want to play with. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope it's something that you will pursue further. I know I'm going to. And before I end off, I do want to do a little recap of the one piece that I was working on that you haven't seen finished now. It is done. And that is this yellow one. So you can see that you really cannot see much of the original velvet. And I have added in sequins and beads. Now I'm going to just kind of walk you through the whole thing here. I will bring this again to another video and go a little bit further in explaining it. You watch me make these yellow flowers. You watch me make the leaves. And then here at the end, I was running out of stuff that I didn't have anymore. So I started playing with other colors, knowing again that if I cut this here, it doesn't matter. I love these green beads piled on top. They take a little longer to do with all that beading, but I love how it turned out. So this will be a separate piece. But there again, I could see very easily using this and this stitched next to it, and a third piece stitched up there. And the next thing you know, you have this beautiful book cover that's made with all of these little slow stitching pieces. So stay tuned for that, because in the end, they all work very nicely together, because these are all colors I love. So I'm creating a palette that is based on things that I like. So I'm excited to see what the results of this will be. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all a very creative day and a creative week, and stay away from the cold bug, because I'll tell you, when it hits you, it knocks you down a notch. But I'm on the mend. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.